Thanks all for coming along tonight. And yes, as Harriet said, you've probably all had some contact with me in some way, shape or form over the last month or so while we've been getting portal underway. So it's lovely of you all to join us tonight. I hope you get a lot out of this session. So I'll be talking a lot about writing and how you write about your art. So there are lots of writers around who write about art, and I'm one of them. But this kind of writing is not what I'll be talking about tonight. This workshop is aimed at artists, so specifically the creators of the object that's being written about. As a creator of this object, it can often be difficult to allow yourself enough distance from the evolution of the process to be able to write about it simply and succinctly. You've just poured your heart and soul into the creation of this object, and you've changed your mind 100, 200, 300 times, and you really want to write about the process that you've been through, but a lot of times this won't work. On the other hand, there's another group of artists who would rather stab yourselves in the eye with a blunt stick than write an artist statement. So you've written one 6 years ago and you keep cutting and pasting and using that same one whenever it's needed. But this too will not work. So words are not your enemy. What I'd like you to consider is writing as being something that can actually help your practice. If you make it part of your routine, it will really help not only writing, but it'll also help the way you look at your art. I recommend to the artists that I speak to set aside a date of reflection each year. Writing about your work and yourself should be seen as an opportunity to take a breath and look at the work you've done over the past year, take stock, and then set some intention for the coming year. It will help your practice. In this workshop, I'll give you a few tips on how you might be able to approach this process of writing about works of your creation, and I'll also address writing for specific purposes and audiences. I'll also cover writing about yourself as a practitioner for an artist statement and biography, and I'll also talk about why a one-size-fits-all approach probably won't fly for every purpose. I'm not going to go into detail about using the active voice or provide any grammatical assistance whatsoever, which you're probably all very relieved about, but this will be a practical workshop with a basic how-to focus. We'll talk about purpose and context, informing the decisions you make as part of the writing process, and why this all needs to be considered before you sit down at your computer and bang out your 50 or 500 words. The other thing I'll talk about is breadcrumbs. So this is, and I'll return to this again and again during this workshop, in that your writing should be an introduction to your work, not an exhaustive explanation. Writing should complement your art. You're giving clues, you're laying a foundation of an inquiring framework within the viewer, if you like, or breadcrumbs along the path. So laying these breadcrumbs is your chance to ensure, if not to ensure that the viewer gets it, they're at least pointed in the right direction. So you don't have to describe, over-explain or elaborate. Your work can do this. So the things to consider before making a start: the what, the where, the who, the when, and how long. So what is the purpose of this piece of your writing? So is it about you or your work? Is it a statement or a biography? Is it going to be used to explain, or is it going to be used to sell or promote? So where will this piece of writing go? Does it form part of an application? And if so, what kind of an application? Is it for a residency? Is it for a grant or a scholarship? Are you applying to do postgraduate study? Is it going to go on a website? And if it's going on a website, whose website? Is it yours? Is it someone else's? Is it galleries? Is it going to be published in a journal or as part of a thesis? Is it a script for a video, or is it just a social media post? The next important thing is who will be reading it. So you've got a number of different audiences that you need to consider before you approach your written work. So who'll be reading it? And an informed audience is an audience that, so for example, you can assume visitors to an art gallery at least have a passing interest in art. They know a few other painters, they know some techniques, and they may even know your work. A specialist audience is like an informed audience, but they also fulfill a specific purpose. So a specialist audience might be an application assessment panel, or a thesis examiner, or a gallery owner. Is it a new audience? So an audience that you could consider new to either your art in general, your particular practice. I would consider, in a lot of cases, like how I'd approach writing for arts trail visitors is to consider that a new audience. Now, that might not be the case for every single person that comes along on the arts trail, but it's safer to err on the side of caution, I guess, because the arts trail, a lot of visitors, and like this isn't just, you know, I'm not just pulling this out of thin air, but a lot of people who come along the arts trail are along for the road trip. It's a great weekend out, and a lot of them, you know, you may not consider to be usual gallery types. There's also a wide range of ages that come along to the trail. So you've got, you know, people from small children all the way through to the elderly, and this does make a difference. So you'll not be able to assume any kind of knowledge in the viewer at all. And so you need to frame your writing that way. And then, of course, you've got a mixture of those. So, where you might see a mixed audience would be someone who's viewing your website. So you'll have such a broad audience there. So a way to approach this is that you'd include an artist statement that writes for a generic audience, and keep it simple and straightforward, with a clear focus on who you are, your practice. My children just got home from their swimming lessons, so probably, or not swimming lessons, they just got home from swimming squad, and please don't come into this room. So just excuse me for a minute while my children barge in. Anyway, back to the mixed audience. So in your artist statement on your website, you could write it for a generic audience. So keep it simple and straightforward, with a clear focus on who you are, your practice, materials used, and where you exhibit. And then you can use your CV, which is also on your website, as your chance to impress an informed audience. So these elements, the what, where, and who, will determine the tone, which is like whether you have it casual, formal, or a mixture of both. They'll determine the tone. We'll also tell you, and they'll also tell you the assumed knowledge of the audience, and the intellectual pitch, and will also determine the content that you'll be including. So what needs to be included, what needs to be left out. So the really important bits, and you should probably look at this first, even though they may not inform the actual content, they do inform a range of other important elements of it. So when is the deadline? When do you need it by? And this is probably the most important of all points, and probably you should start at this. So to give yourself plenty of time for plenty of drafts, plenty of sitting time. And the sitting time is like when you save what you've written, shut down your computer and walk away for a week. yeah, so you can come back to it, have another look before you need to put it in. How long does it need to be? And this will inform, I guess, the framework of what you're writing. So if you've got a biography of 150 words, you'd be looking at, say, 3 key points of 2 to 3 sentences each. If you've got a statement of up to 400 words, you can have up to 5 points, but definitely no more. And instead of being 2 to 3 sentences, there'll be a short paragraph. The number of words that are put on any application, or the maximum number, should not automatically fill you with dread. This should give you an indication of how many key points you can fit within that word count and how you should structure your approach to each of those points. So for 150 and under words, you're looking at addressing each point with a short and punchy approach. With 200 and over, you can elaborate further on each point. So really you're just providing more context for each point, not adding more points on, if you see what I mean. So just stick to your key points. And at the end of the day, you don't need to reach the maximum. This is the ceiling, not an achievement. And I can guarantee you that anyone who is looking at your application along with 40 others will be so thankful that you didn't feel the need to fill the full 500 word content. So yeah, having been in that position a few times myself. So we're on to artist statements and artist bios. What's the difference? An artist statement is about your art, not about you. And a good artist statement should not get in between the reader and your art. Like blue cheese and red wine, it should be a complement, not an impediment, and shouldn't create confusion or distraction. At the end of this particular section, I'll show you a couple of examples of artist statements and bios I've found, which are both good and great. And hopefully after listening to me over the next 10, 15 minutes, hopefully no longer than that, you'll see what I mean. Yeah. Anyway, as I said before, it's about your art, not you. Artist statements are needed when applying for gallery representation, applying for a residency to support grant applications. They sit on your website and other people's. Your artist statement should be written in the first person because it's you speaking about your art. For example, like my paintings are blue. Make your words as specific to the purpose and context as possible, as I mentioned before. For example, if you've been asked to write a statement that will accompany a room sheet for your upcoming exhibition, the purpose there is a room sheet to explain your collective works, and the context is that the room sheet will sit in the gallery for gallery visitors, so you're looking at a knowledgeable audience that are coming to see your show. You don't need to talk about the last show or your influences, you don't talk about your qualifications, you do speak to the overall theme and talk about where the ideas came from and what this body of work represents. Only talk about the medium you've used, like if it's informed the work itself. Keep it in the present. Write about your current work, not the historical progression of it. And the audience, of course, consider the audience. So is it a grant submission, or is it general audience? Is it expert or potential client? Again, depending on the context, you could be writing about a particular series or a specific work of art. And if you're writing about a series, you just need to be more global in your approach, meaning you write about a group of works as a whole, not individually. And like, don't list them off in a long descriptive list. You can probably highlight 1 or 2 important works within that series, and you'll still have a good body of writing there. So what to include? Motivation. How your work usually develops and evolves during the creative process is something that's really great to draw on. Quite often this is about the intellectual process and the physical process. And by the intellectual process, I mean the conscious intention of your work. So regardless of what your work is about, is it landscape, portraiture, abstract, sculpture, whatever. Inspiration has never just come to you. As much as many people like to romanticise this notion, nothing ever just appears to you as if in a dream, and nobody expects that to happen either. And it doesn't really tell the viewer anything either. So what they want to hear is like, what did you think about in the days, weeks, months leading up to creating the work? What had you seen? Were there social events or personal events that prompted your path? Think closely about the lead up to the creation of the work before you sat down and started sketching. And the physical process, of course, refers to how you and your work is informed by the physical process of making. So, like the routines involved. Could be the location of your studio, how you get there, like how you physically approach your work, how you stand at an easel, how you bend over a wheel, like the physicality of making, like the movement and the influence of materials, different colours, textures, viscosity. All of this can really conjure up some really evocative descriptions and make for some really great reading and insight into your work. So if you can make notes on all of these things, I'm not saying you need to include everything, just make notes on all of these things and distill that down to a sentence or two. You'll be really surprised at how great your work can sound on the written page. Medium and style. Does the medium you use influence your technique? And has this been a conscious decision? Like, have you changed mediums from one to the other? Have they informed one another? How does working in acrylic differ to oils? Has this changed your approach? Do you use non-traditional mediums or surfaces? In regards to style, you could, say in what style would you categorise yourself? And this isn't an absolute, and in many ways it is best described as an influence. So, for example, you're influenced by the clarity of the modernists or the process of the Bauhaus or the ready-mades of Duchamp, although that's been overdone a little, that sort of thing. And of course, be confident. Speak in a direct manner that is confident. So instead of saying, in this work, I've tried to convey a sense of distress, you try, in this work, a sense of distress is conveyed through my brushwork. Leave out, I've attempted to, I hope to, or options for consideration, like just be straight down the line. Leave out, be yourself. Avoid becoming a persona. It's really hard to keep up. Plus, a lot of is being said about authenticity at the moment. I think it's almost like pivot and flex and agile, but it's one of the few realities of writing and ways of guaranteeing to engage an audience. People can sense your genuine personality shining through, and this is how you convert people who just follow your work into people who actively pursue you as an artist. So it's a fine balance. You want to lead the audience to draw their own conclusions, but you also don't want them flailing around in the dark either. So you want to help them just get the most out of your work. What you should avoid is, don't tell, always just infer. This is not a manifesto. You've got to keep it short, sharp, and to the point. And definitely keep art theory out of it. Leave the elaborations to art critics and boffins like me and Harriet. Avoid speaking overtly about your influences or teachers unless this is relevant to your application. So, for example, if you're studying a specific technique or style, that may be beneficial to include if that's relevant to your application. Leave out the psychoanalysis and for I'm an artist and I must paint illusions. Be very specific. This may be your calling, and I've no doubt that for many of you it is, but it is your practice and you need to explain the how, why and what so you can be distinguished from every other artist. So your artist bio. basically an artist bio should be about 50 to 100 words max. Sometimes they go up to 150. And this is a short, concise CV in 4 to 5 sentences, essentially. So you include items of relevance only. Yeah, so this can include where you live, only if this is relevant, like stating you're a Janjak artist for a statement for the Arts Trail is relevant, as this event is specifically for the Surf Coast. You include your goals, reflection, intentions, and again, keep it friendly, and maybe add something that's unique to you to let your audience in. Being a person is a really good thing to be in your artist bio, even though it's written in the third person. So it'll be written as if you be saying, you know, Stacie is a writer and editor and lives in Janjak. Okay, getting on to reviewing what you've written. You need to do it more than once and with more people than just you. So you will need to recruit people, and preferably people who will be honest with you. But before you get to that point, you can probably do a few reviews yourself, like reading it out loud. How does it sound to your own ears? Sometimes when you've just written and rewritten the same thing over and over and over, it all makes sense until you hear it, and then you're just like, oh my God, there's so much repetition in here, and I can't believe I've said that thing, 1,000 times over, and oh my God, that sentence doesn't make any sense. So yeah. As I mentioned before, I use a technique of leaving it alone for a week and coming back to it after that. It looks like a whole new thing again. And resist the urge to completely rewrite it. But yeah, leave it alone for a week. It works really well. Read it to a complete stranger, or read it to a friend and tell them someone else wrote it. This is the only real way to get an honest assessment of its understandability and accuracy. Or if you might have a really good friend who's a fellow editor and deadly honest, and you have to steel yourself every time you get something back from them. I'll talk briefly about an elevator pitch, which really you don't need to write, but it's just a handy thing for you to reflect on. Personally, I've really struggled with being able to ever describe what I do in 2 to 3 sentences, especially when I'm put on the spot and someone's asked me that question. And it doesn't come across as particularly confident, I've got to say. So the best thing you can do for yourself to come across as a confident artist is to work on an elevator pitch, rehearse it, and know it off by heart. And after you've done your artist statement and your bio, this should come really easily to you. And basically an elevator pitch is how you describe your art and your practice in less than a minute. So in 2 to 3 short sentences, and the shorter the better. So this is all about confidence. And again, it's making sure you know what you're all about. And it's an important skill to have, to be able to explain to people what you do before their eyes glaze over and they stop listening. And it will totally work wonders at parties. You'll not only appear so much more confident and professional, but you'll actually feel it too. So it's a really, really good thing to have in your pocket. Your CV. If you've written a comprehensive art statement and bio, your CV will round these out by providing the specifics of your experience. Your CV should include notable and relevant achievements, so it's not a laundry list of everything you've ever done. And again, this should be reviewed before each use, or at least annually. So every time you drag that out to put another application in, you really need to look at it and make sure everything in it is relevant to what you are using it for. And don't just keep adding to it every year. You may need to go back and take a couple of years off every couple of years. Or, just refine it. Take out events from certain years. If you've been alive as long as I have, then you probably have like a few years in your CV now, but maybe just take a few things that you've done out of each of those years. So the CV should include group and solo shows, the awards that you may have received, of course relevant awards, not like your grade 11 I guess arts award, your education, and again this is only where it's relevant. Putting in that you've done an MBA when you're a sculptor probably won't help you get that residency. The residencies and grants that you have received, this looks really great on your application if you look like you've been successful in other residencies and grant applications. Bibliography, if you've been included in anyone else's writing, it is great to have that listed on your CV, and any relevant work experience. So residency applications. Look, I was going to go into a lot of detail about residency applications, and well, and in the end I did go into some detail, more than what I intended to. I'm not sure how interested people are in finding out about how to do these, because they're a pretty big deal and they're a fantastic opportunity, but because they're such a big deal and such a big opportunity and there's so few of them about, it really does take a lot of work to put in a good application that will be successful for you. So before you even start looking for a residency, you need to ask yourself why you want that residency. Like, is there a specific project you're working on? Like, what is its focus? Like, how would you benefit from it as an artist? How would your project benefit from it? You've got to check out what kind of support's available. Like, there's a lot of residencies out there where you've got a residence and that's it. There's no support. You're there alone in the wilderness with you and your thoughts. So if that's not your idea of a great time, then look for a residency that has a lot of support. You're surrounded by other artists, and that's what's expected to be done. And ask yourself what you need from it, I guess, and work out what environment you like. And you've got to also work out what period of time you'd be looking at to do that all. Like a lot of residencies, some of them can go for 3 months, some of them can go for 3 weeks. So just work out what you'd like, and I guess get a list of what you want, like up there and in front of you before you even start looking. And give heaps of time in advance, like plan ahead. Like look at residencies that are coming up like 18 months in advance. Can I get everyone just to check that their mics are muted? I can hear someone's television in the background. So if everyone can check that, that'd be great. It's certainly not my place. Sorry, Harriet. So yeah, before you even put pen to paper, you've got to research. So you've found a residency application and doing research, and and I think Harriet's just mentioned she's going to cover some of that in her workshop. So I probably shouldn't go into a great deal of detail about it, but you do need to do a lot of reading about each specific residency, and find out what they want. It's not always just about you. It's about the residency organisation. It's about you. I don't know where that noise is coming from. I really don't.
Yeah, sorry, Stace. I'm looking. It does appear that everyone is muted, so I'm not sure what it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ooh, is that me?
Total mystery.
Oh, hold on. That's the TV in the background.
Veronica
Oh.
McDonald is showing up on mine as not muted. Someone said.
Yeah, mute all. Stace, are you unmuted though?
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Good-o. You're all muted now. No, it's still there. It's someone else. Anyway.
Okay. I'm just trying to do it here. There we go. Did it. All right, but seeing as Harriet's going to cover residencies to a certain extent next week, I won't go into too much detail, but and ask me about it if you like at the tea station next Wednesday. Specific purposes, so writing for specific purposes such as social media posts. Social media is an interesting beast, and again I'll come back to authenticity. This is the most important thing for social media. Like, use your own voice at all times. As I said, if people will scroll through like your previous posts, and if you sound completely different from day one to what you do now, people will pick up on that. So you're better off day one, use your own voice, be your own person, be authentic. Anyway, reply to comments that you get as soon as you can. If you reply to comments, then you're creating a relationship with people. Stay friendly and engaged. Do it regularly. Write about specific works, what you're working on, what inspires you, and lots of general observations, and these all give really good insights into your art and your practice, and will form a really good record for you to look back on as well. So writing a script for your video, I just included this in because a lot of you may be working on your videos at the moment, and you may be wondering what to talk about. And when you're only doing a video of probably 2 to 3 minutes, you want to make sure everything you include is relevant and worth listening to. So a few considerations might be, what makes you and your art unique, what you're most proud of. It might be something that's in your studio. It might be an artwork that you've done recently, and you might talk about what you think people might want to know about your practice, something that you don't think people would get from just looking at your work. And you set up 3 or 4 scenes around these key points. So don't talk too much. And like a lot of the good videos I've seen of studio tours include a lot of ambient music in the background and just a few suggestive phrases. And keep it minimal. Okay, I spoke before about referring to a couple of really good examples of artist statements, and I went searching around for artists that I actually like and read theirs on a couple of different sites, and I really, really liked this one. I don't know what it was about Ben's artist statement, but I think at the end of the day it was just really great word use. Like, he's like the bursting with colour and surreal elements, and transforming, like the mystical realm and mystery, like they're all really evocative words, but they're not foofy, if you get what I mean. And I really like the, what does it say? Surreal, figures, architecture and landmarks imbue Ben's paintings with a sense of narrative, anchoring his work tentatively to reality. As Ben does actually work in, they are, figures in a landscape. You can certainly see that, but his colour is amazing and it is very mystical. So it's a fantastic artist statement about his work, and really encapsulates what all of his paintings are about. And his little bit at the bottom that includes an organic banana plantation is also a really nice touch. And that was what I was talking about before, something that's unique to you. Like, is always just a nice little thing to include, because people sort of feel like they know you just that little bit better. Peter Armstrong is a local artist, and she works in ceramics. And I liked this artist statement, but I just changed it a little bit, and I just wanted to maybe show you how I had done that. So the intro paragraph is great, you know, it tells you what she does and where she's located. And I think what this second paragraph, what she was trying to say is that her break and move into a different industry has actually now informed her now practice in ceramics. So, and it was just a little awkward. So I've just changed it slightly to, you know, include a couple of different words about having a break from, you know, going away from ceramics and then coming back, and how it's rejuvenated her approach. So I changed it from the greatest influence on her work has been to entirely lean into the process after an extended break from working with clay. So that sentence is sort of disjointed, and you're not really sure what process and, you know, she's talking about there. So I just rephrased that to say the greatest influence on her work has been her hiatus from working with clay, which has resulted in a rejuvenated and unstructured approach to the medium. Yeah, anyway, and yeah, during her time away from the studio, she worked in the screen printing industry as a graphic artist and designer. This hiatus has resulted in a new vantage point where she is equally enamoured with sculptural objects of both function and of form. So yeah, and that final paragraph is just lovely. The intention of her practice is to create pieces that are well considered, constructed and cherished in home. So yeah, that's just a really nice closing paragraph. Rachel Hine, I'll have to duck out and show you Rachel's website, but you may know Rachel. She is now I've just stopped sharing, but it hasn't disappeared from my screen, is a Geelong artist, and she trained in the, I'm just trying to find my Zoom screen now. She trained at the Tapestry Workshop with Kate Derham. If anyone knows Tapestry, they'll know Kate Derham. She worked very closely with her. She's very, very talented in what she does. She works large scale and small scale works, and she's got a really lovely website. So her homepage is of artwork, which is fantastic because she's an artist, don't need a lot of words there. Her CV is comprehensive, and she has not included anything that's irrelevant. I don't consider having a birth date an irrelevant thing. I think that's quite an important thing to include in anyone's CV. And she's just got a list of her education, her individual exhibitions, her group exhibitions dating back to 1995. So that's probably when she first started out. She probably would have been a graduate then. She's probably like 24 then. And her awards that she's been granted: bibliography, where she's been mentioned by other people's writings, and her relevant work experience. So that shows her, I guess, extensive experience. And she's got another page here which shows just all of her work, her contact, and she also has a blog, but she doesn't keep that up to date anymore. She largely works through Instagram to do what her blog used to do. She shares a lot of her inspirations. She does her daily sketches, and shares like a lot of, I guess, images that inspire her. You can probably tell she does a lot of work with women, and particularly around fashion. Like this Ladies in the Unicorn, if anyone got a chance to go up to Sydney a couple of years ago, the French tapestry, the Lady in the Unicorn, was on display for the first time, I think, ever in Australia. And she did this work in response, and I love how she's got like a little pony unicorn in here, and a number of, and I think these are all based on like Vogue models that she found in magazines. So really great stuff. Anyway, her about, which is like her, I guess, artist statement, is really nice, and how she's included this picture of her aged 4 is just lovely, and just how she describes, like, she lives and works in Geelong and spends most days working in her studio. She's a master's graduate, relevant from Monash University, and has worked as a professional weaver at the Australian Tapestry Workshop. She's exhibited consistently, locally and internationally, in group exhibitions for many years. She's known for creating whimsical portraits of women. So with a strong interest in drawing and historical tapestry, Hine builds small bodies of work that flow from one to another. So she's talking about the history of her work, but not in a way that makes it sound like this has gone on for years, and not to overly describe it either, but there is a connection there. Subjects like identity, perception, and a sense of continuity are themes that Rachel is investigating. So she talks about what her works are interrogating now and have done. Working at all scales of size, Hine mainly creates very finely woven and intimate work. If you've seen a lot of Rachel's work, some of them can be like literally this big, and the weaving is so fine. So you need to get really up close to see them, unlike the enormous ones she would have worked at the Australian Tapestry Workshop. So yeah, Rachel can provide one-on-one tuition by appointment. Contact Rachel through a contact page. So it's all very relevant and useful information that's there. So yeah, now getting back to my presentation, if I can find it, I'm pretty sure we're almost done. Yes, we are. I'll just, I need to start sharing my screen again. Sorry, getting between these is a little difficult on my Mac.
Multiple screens.
Okay. Yeah, extra tips and tricks. Get a thesaurus. They're very handy. For just finding lots of different adjectives. I have 3 different thesauruses that I refer to on a regular basis, and they come in handy. I tend to get stuck on the same words, and yeah, so a thesaurus is very useful. Walk away. I keep saying walk away. That's the rolling theme. Tomorrow is another day. If it's giving you the shits, get up and get out. You'll not get better once you've really, if it's getting to you, you need to walk away from it. Read other artist statements and bios of people that you admire and follow, and people who work in your medium. See what they're writing, how they're writing. It'll seep into your bones, and it'll become very familiar to you, and it'll influence you subconsciously, and you'll automatically start writing better and more evocatively. There is grammar assistance online, and I don't know, I put this in, but don't get hung up on grammar too much. People do get worried that they're breaking the rules, but honestly, if it looks like and sounds like it makes sense, it will. If you are worried that something doesn't sound quite right and you're not sure whether to use a that or a which, then I refer to a couple of online places when I've got those really silly rules that I can never remember and I need to brush up on them. There's Grammarly.com, which means Grammarly, you can actually run things through it and it checks it for you. Not particularly good, but does the basics. What is really good is Grammar Girl, that quickanddirtytips.com. That is Grammar Girl, and she's great. You can just type in what you need to know and you'll find an answer straight away. She covers everything. And if you're really keen on really improving your writing, I've done a couple of workshops through Penny Modra at the Good Copy in Melbourne, and she is absolutely fantastic. She's entertaining, and she somehow makes grammar sound really interesting. She does a stop grammar time workshop that goes for a single day. It costs $350, and if you really want to get the grammar education that you think you might have missed out on because the Australian curriculum didn't include it when you're in high school, then go along to one of Penny's classes, because she's fantastic. And don't lose hope. It ain't dead yet. So if you're not sure what is needed, call the gallery or the organisation or whoever you're writing this for, and just clarify what you need, what they need you to write. Engage a trusted friend, as I mentioned before. Find someone who will give you honest advice and who actually knows what they're talking about too. That's also useful. Let it sit, give it some time to marinate, and if all else fails, call an expert. So yeah, you can call me or Harriet. An arts development office is really handy to refer to, especially if you're like applying for, one of the local grants or, opportunities around here. Part of Harriet's role is to actually help you with the writing of these sort of things. You can send it to us and we'll have a look and, tell you where you might be able to improve. So yeah, so thank you everyone. That's pretty much it. I've answered all of
you. I'm cutting over you. I've got to say, it was also very funny. I enjoyed Blair Witch quite a lot. Or maybe it's just me. It's been a long day. So everyone, we do have a little bit of time now. You're getting lots of thank yous coming through in the chat, Stace, but we do have a bit of time if anyone's got anything that they'd like Stacey to run over quickly. So Stacie, we did get a question earlier on regarding the presentation. Will you just convert that to a PDF? Is that what you'll send out?
Yeah.
Great. So
yeah, I think most of them are in there. I
think she's given you like the absolute sort of keys to those things. I really love that earlier stuff about, breaking your 400 words down into, 4 or 5 key points and not going over there. I think that thing, I talk about this with my kids all the time with writing. You write it out and you write it out, and then you come back with the scalpel and you get rid of every extraneous word, until the things that really drives your work is very clear.
Yeah.
Will the presentation be sent by email? Yes, it will. So we've obviously got all of your email details and things because you registered with us. And there was one question, Stace, do you use a template for your writing?
No. No, I can't say I do. What sort of writing do you think?
Did you want to? I'm not sure who is actually speaking to me because I only see an A. What sort of, are you thinking about like a bios, or the artist statement?
Thinking about artist statements, but also when you're writing a critique or a response.
No, I tend not to work with templates for that sort of thing, because as much as I made this sound like a real scientific approach, I actually like to have some creativity involved in my writing as well. I hope that makes sense. I think there is probably a bit of a formula you can follow of what things you need to include, but I don't necessarily use a template.
What I might suggest there is, for example, if you those couple of sample sort of bios and things that Stacie gave you, you could see how they'd broken it up. I mean, I think in Stacie's first slides, she does do that. You want the what, the who, the where, the when, the how, and then you want to break that down into 2 or 3 short paragraphs. So it's sort of that thing of, it's about, as you would investigate through your own art form, it's about looking at what, some that you like and going, what is it exactly that they've done? How have they introduced their work, their practice, etc., etc. It's about looking at the structure, or to be really sort of, over the top, the architecture of the writing that you admire, and then breaking it down from there.
Yeah. And I think in the examples I used, they did have sort of like the same sort of formula, like such and such as an artist, you know, studio is here, or, you know, works out of here, and then an elaboration on their work and, you know, how it's progressed, where it's going, and then a little wrap up that's actually quite a nice little thing. Like I mentioned about, you know, living with his children near an organic banana plantation, you know, like that's sort of like a nice little personal wrap up. So yeah, I guess there are formulas, and like Harriet said, I think you can see those formulas by just reading a lot of them. You know, you'll be able to see there's consistencies across different ones. What's this? Can an artist statement just refer to the piece of work submitted for an art prize? Yes, it can. I just wrote one for someone the other day. They were putting a specific work in for an art prize, and they need to have an artist statement. So that statement was about a specific piece of work.
So everyone, it really has been a fabulous resource, Stacie. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled that we're going to continue to have this, you know, a record of this as a video, and that will of course be on the portal website. So all of these workshops, we will have links on the portal website for them so that you can actually download them and keep them for yourselves for, you know, going forward. Stacie, I loved your idea too about that once a year taking stock and as artists and writing, you know, what it is, you know, where your practice has gone in the year, etc., because that way you're always keeping abreast of, oh, this is how my practice has evolved. So I think that was a really great idea to share with people. So everyone, thanks again for your time and your eagerness. As we said, we'll be sending out the PDF of the presentation either tonight or tomorrow, and the video will be available hopefully by the end of next week. And yes, I am your arts development officer, so I am your, you know, I am your resource. So please, if you do, yeah, Stacie, myself, and all of our local area coordinators, we're all really happy to talk to you about any text that you'd like to have on the site, on the portal site itself, and to help you with getting up to date your artist statement, etc. But otherwise, we really encourage you to get to it and practice and lose the fear, basically.
Definitely.
So thanks, everyone. If there's no more questions, thank you, Stace. And everyone, thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you and seeing your work virtually and in person as soon as possible.
Definitely.
We might leave it there, folks. Enjoy your evening. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Adios.